there are standards in this world. You may fall below the standards, but your aspiration consistently should be to reaching those standards. You cannot give yourself excuses when you want to aspire to reach those standards. That, to me, the standards are clear. One man, one woman. End of conversation.
That's a clear position.
Yeah.
Do you have one, Winston?
I have a position of our ancestors.
My brother. Yeah.
You sound like Kunta Kinte. I have a position of our ancestors.
And the position of our ancestors is very simple. A man, as he desires, can marry more than one, should be allowed to, as he desires.
Okay.
Yes.
Give us a modern position.
That's my modern position. It's a position from our ancestors.
Postmodernist ancestral position.
And I am guided by the fact that Raymond, I'm sure you'd appreciate this. In fact, Sigmund Freud traces the history of religion to the time men lived in hordes, where one man married all the women. And because the others could not have even access to one, talk of two, they killed him and started worshipping him after his death. And that became the source of religion. My point is very simple.
The source of which religion?
Religion, as you know it today, according to Sigmund Freud. My point is simply this.
Winston Jai.
Man by nature is polygamous.
That's what men have said.
Then we should just say humans by nature are. We should say
humans by nature are polygamous.
Man is both male and female.
So you accept that it's okay for women to be
polygamous? Why not?
Oh, fantastic.
And if society would allow you to do that, I don't have a problem with that.
And can I state,
before you come to that point, I just want to raise the point here. When we say by nature, are we saying that there are physiological dispositions of a man that makes you want to be a certain kind?
Or is it emotions or feelings?
Yes. So, for example, which ones? Is it excess supply of dopamine? Is that what you're talking about?
Or maybe testosterone.
Is that what makes you feel like, because
by
for
nature,
example,
you should be
that would mean that you want to engage in intercourse consistently. But I can be with the same person.
Exactly, and engage consistently.
So that doesn't necessarily make you. Yes, and why? If they're
so
driving
variety
the same
is not about physiology or biology.
That's the question I'm asking about. This man is by nature.
I think it's a term coined by men too. The ancestors. Anyway, so
I like the calm with which he states the point and relaxes through it. Yeah.
Thank you very
much.
He's
a true ancestor.
I think that something that we don't talk about when we're having this is how painful polygamy can be for women. So if you're talking about the story that has been trending with the Nigerian actor, you marry a woman who supports you, believes in your dreams, sacrifices her dreams and her life and all of that to build you into a man that is attractive.
Admissions you make yourself.
Admissions you make yourself. And I'm saying this based on the fact that we have seen men who are nothing. Until they have married a woman and she has made him everything. Or you've seen men that nobody wants until is married to a woman who has poured her life and soul into him. And now suddenly he's attractive and he's all that. And then he says, okay, well, I'm going to do number 2. Suddenly I believe in polygamy. Suddenly I can hear my ancestors speaking through the voice of a possession or whatever. And then you're supposed to accept it. But polygamy for women is painful. This morning, Winston has said it, Kojo has said it, that there's no woman who, if you ask from the get-go, I want to marry you, but I want to be polygamous, would agree. So why are we not?
Unless they are the second one.
Unless they are the second or the third. So why do we not look at it from the viewpoint that this is painful? It is heart-wrenching. It makes women who are not married afraid. Even when you're married, you're thinking, if I'm giving him my all, is he at some point going to dishonor me this way? And it is dishonorable when you are married to a woman and you go and have a baby outside, or you go and bring a second wife. It is dishonorable unless from the get-go and from the very beginning of your relationship, it is an agreement. And I dare say that there are not many men who would look at a woman that they want desperately and tell them from the get-go that I will be polygamous in 5 years. But after you have eaten the kinky and the fish and eaten it every night and you feel like, oh, this kinky and fish I'm tired of eating, now suddenly you have the courage to step out because you've stopped valuing what you desired so much for.
I agree. There is the indecency of thinking that. And see, if I am interested in you and I'm coming to propose to you, there's no, I'll start by saying
that exactly.
As I am talking to you now, you are the most wonderful woman in the world. But I'm supporting the next 10 years. I want another wonderful man as number 2.
Yeah.
Nobody does that.
Exactly.
Maybe except the very powerful people who can command people to their, what they call it, and all of that. But most women in this century will not agree to that. It is not possible.
But
That
Raymond,
it's the greed part. Let's not forget it. It's the greed part that I have seen Ediboa, and I've actually done the Ediboa for years. I now feel that, I've seen another woman. Is the woman also very nice? I can get it all. I can get other people. If that is what you wanted to do. Yeah.
Without consequence.
Yes, of course. Because you get other people supporting you.
Yeah.
Because you get other people who are doing it indirectly.
So guys,
who are not even officially declaring them, supporting you and creating the impression that, this is allowed, and giving all the excuses they can give in the
Because
world.
once yours becomes accepted, then maybe mine will be accepted one day.
For a second,
listen,
how many of these men today, if they
Why
have their
are
wives or the people in their relationship will still be in the relationship with the day?
Why are ancestors
we've
quiet?
discussed the
Ancestors
issue. The issue. We've discussed the issue of side chick, and I remember 2 women calling and saying that they would do the selection for the men, for their own husbands.
Yeah, I've had that
People-
conversation before, Mama V, and let me tell you something. Women have become calloused. If you push and you push and you push, there is pain underneath. Because the expectation of pain is easier to deal with,
That's
knowing
true.
pain will come, than to be hopeful.
Yeah. It's the management
And
of
say
pain
it
that's
is
true,
the
yeah.
management of pain. That's why some women are like, as for your husband, he'll cheat. As for your husband, it's normal. No, it's not normal. We are normalizing it so that when it happens, it doesn't hit you as
Because I
hard.
was just going to say that there are some women who would say, I would rather want to see the woman know that there is another woman than for him to do it
But
without
her first
my
thing would
knowledge.
be, I would rather he didn't.
Well,
And then if he will, then I would rather,
If he
yeah.
doesn't have a choice.
Mama V, while you are talking about this,
The
there's a poem.
ancestors are speaking.
No, there's a poem written by Imugude Frank.
Is that a man?
Before you get onto the poem, let me just announce that the phone lines are open 0302 216 541 and 055 1111997. Let's hear the poem.
So this poem,
Written by a man.
a long time ago, Frank is a man, and he talks about, he says, one wife for one man. It's in Pidgin. You know that at the time we were advocating writing in Pidgin. He says, I they try go church, I they go for court. Them all they talk about the new culture, then talk about equality, then mention divorce. One wife before one man. My father before my father. Now he get wife boku. He no get equality, my palava. He live well. For him be oga for his own house. By the time don't pass before white man come. One man, one wife for one man. Tell me how una woman no go make younger when he knows see na him alone day. He continues. I tell you, which one is the problem, Raymond?
No, it's a competition driving the.
Yeah, so he talks about competition.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that I identify with everything he said here. He says, I tell you, that man be crazy way start one wife for one man. Just tell me how one wife fit do one man. How you go fit stay all the time for in house. For time when belle don't come out. How many pikin serve one woman fit born when one wife before one man? Suppose say, na so woman your wife they born. Suppose say your wife sabi book, no sabi make chop.
That line alone is so
I know.
ignorant.
I know.
It's so, and it completely makes the whole
So
poem.
respect.
What is no? You can't say
So-
that your
so
wife
this is just a
is. What
poem.
is your
It's a
wife?
poem.
It's not just a poem. It's not
So-
just a
It's a poem.
poem.
So
It's
before,
a
before
poem.
It's
you
not just
Relax.
a poem.
You
It's
haven't
these
landed.
poems
Haven't
You
landed.
that.
haven't landed because let me ask my question. Okay.
Let me
Uh,
finish the
the-
poem.
the
Let me
question
finish
is-
the poem. Let me finish the poem.
But I don't even know when
It
you're
says-
landing.
The
Sake
poem
of
is-
divorce.
Oh Jesus Christ!
This culture na wayo when one wife before one man.
Excuses. Okay, so is it time for us to reconsider the place of polygamy in our society? What form would that take in 2022? And if we insist on embracing polygamous marriages, then should that include the rights of women to have more than one husband? These are the questions that we're
Right.
asking.
Can I just address something in that poem? This is a narrative that's and it makes people very ignorant. When you write a poem like this and you say that, oh, I want to marry a lot of women, because what if the woman is giving birth to only girls? Meanwhile, we know that it's a man who determines the sex of a child. And so for me, it just renders the whole thing like completely off coin, because I don't get that. And apart from
let's go to the phone lines. We've got Fafa from Adenta is joining us. Good morning, Fafa.
No, please.
Good morning.
Yes, hi, Fafa. So, is it time for us to reconsider the place of polygamy?
Long overdue, man.
Hey! Why'd you say
All
that?
are patriots in the Bible.
Oh, here.
How many of them married one? Even the Almighty Solomon.
Left a lot of
built the
confusion
temple?
when he died. He left a lot.
Even,
Today, I'm
even the
not
Almighty
supposed to-
Solomon, who built the temple. Huh? Who is the mother? He's a surrogate mother. So, what are we talking about? Let's face the factors of the day and deal with it as it is. And stop pretending. It will help us. My little submission.
We thank you, Fafa. Bishop from Asante Mampo. Bishop, good morning.
Good morning. Hey, Enimwa, where have you gone to? Enimwa and Mama V. I tell you, I've gotten the names right.
Yes, you have.
Yes, the topic for the day is the issue of men marrying two wives. You people, you know that the debate you will lose, so you've decided to bring polyandry, bring this and the rest. Why not concentrate on that one today? Then another time we'll look at yours. Anyway, as I say, it's opinion. Everybody has it. It depends on who is the player. And he thinks that he can afford or he cannot afford. But ideally, the rules to get yourself to be godly and to worship your God well. Can you love all the women equally? Can you love all the men, if it is polyandry? Can you love all of them equally? These are the rules. So if you cannot, then the ideal one is what? One man, one market. So one man, one wife.
Okay.
So please, let us look at it and be able to do it the way we'll do and we'll be comfortable. Somebody may say, okay, one is giving me trouble. I'm going for another one. You go for the other one, and more troubles will come. You go for the third one, more troubles. Before you know, you are breaking down. You die and leave the woman. And the woman will enjoy your property and enjoy all that. And there will be confusion. If you don't unite them, the children will have a problem. So it depends on what you want for yourself before you leave this world.
Okay. All right, Bishop, we thank you. Mauli is from Bagwi. Hello, Mauli.
Hi. Mama, good morning.
Good morning, Mauli. Where do you stand? More fun, low, half one.
Anyway, Michelle.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
I'm good.
Awesome.
This story, I'm just trying to, I want us to cast our mind back on some issues. How has the side chick story evolved to now? Now, let's look at it this way. Some time back, it was an abomination to talk about somebody being a side chick. Even the ladies themselves were not accepting it. But this is a case, ladies are becoming bold to become side chick. That is what is happening. It's either you are accepting it now, or it will become what it is sometime to come. And it's going to be very close. It is close. The period is very short. Now we have people who are accepting that I am a side chick. And trust me, if the women start, they have the power to make the decision. If women start accepting it, that this is what it is, it will happen. There's no two ways about it. And they are one what the men do. Men are scared to come out and tell their wives that, oh, I have a lady here or what, because of what they perceive is going to happen, how the woman is going to take it. But once that barrier is closed or is taken care of, it becomes a normal thing. And that is my take.
All right, Mauli, thank you very much for sharing. Let's go to Mampom. Harrison, good morning.
Yeah, Mama, you people are doing a very good job. I'm calling from Abo. I want to say that I'm from a polygamous family. And I can tell you that on my part, I have seen so many positives coming from a polygamous family. But let us also look at it this way. Even if we open the floodgates for men to go polygamous legally, some will have a reason why they will not do that. And if we even close the door, some will continue to do that. I have friends who have married, and then they travel all the time, and you see them misbehaving with other women. To legalize a second wife and have whatever enjoyment you want to have, and then going secret and doing something bad, which of them is better? I think there are so many married men who are sleeping around without second wives who are legally recognized. And I think it's very terrible. It's very, very terrible.
All right, Harrison, thank you very much for calling. I wonder, so after the second wife, those who have the second 3 wives, do they also have side chicks or it ends there? William is from Gumwa. Good morning, William.
Good morning, no.
Yeah, good morning, William. Thanks for joining.
Winston.
Yes, William.
My name is
Hello, William.
Raymond.
Yes, boss.
How are you all?
By God's grace.
Okay, Winston. I side with you with the ancestors' view. Now, let me break it down.
Please go ahead.
Our old folks, before, were at peace, living peacefully, one man, many wives.
Yes, William, continue.
When you are raising animals, how many males do you use as against how many females? Number 3, we were on this continent when a white man brought his Bible, brought his religion. Even in there, most of the holy men of God had multiple wives. God did not get vexed. Now, the women who have been crying, you see, this is a man's world. You want your husband to be as wise as Solomon, yet you want him to do only one. How will he get that wisdom? Solomon's wisdom didn't come cheap. And you want him to be perfect without practice. How possible? Whether or not we like it, it is in this modern world that we are following some culture that, one man, one wife. If that's how a person likes it, fine. If the other person likes multiple too, fine. We should rather encourage people to live in peace, single or multiple, than to have one person claiming or pretending to have one wife, then he has 20 girlfriends hiding. Me, I have 9 wives, with giving me 27 children. All of them know each other. Than to have one wife, then I'm hiding 8 girlfriends, everybody hiding from everybody.
So
that
how many
is not
do you
correct.
have now?
Let's go back to our roots. They were living in peace. We can also live in peace.
Okay. All right.
Have a good morning, family.
Have a good one, too. Abu Muhammad is joining us from Japan. Hello, Abu.
Hello, good morning, Father.
Good morning, Abu.
Yeah. Okay, me too. I'm coming from a polygamous home.
Right.
And we are polygamous children around. There is no any problem among ourselves. But first of all, if you observe, nature itself has designed men to marry more than one woman. If you want to compete with the men, as a woman, how many men can you carry their pregnancy at a time? If you sleep with 10 men, you can only carry the pregnancy of one of them, not all of them. But as a man, you can impregnate about 4 or 5 women at a time. So it's not an argument. First of all, our strength. You see, I don't want to go deep into that. But you cannot accommodate a strong man as a single woman. You cannot. How strong are you? You understand? So, you see, I don't want to offend you, but the reason why many women don't want, their husbands to be polygamous is because of maybe property and some other things. But if you observe yourself, God designed you in such a way that you are not as strong as man. So therefore, you cannot marry more than one man. But as a man, you can marry more than one woman. As we are speaking right now, there are more girls out there who don't even have a boyfriend to say, this is my permanent boyfriend. You understand? So you don't have to argue about these things. You understand? I'm very sorry. Thank you very much.
Abu Mohammed, apologizing in the end. Oh, we're not offended. You're sharing your thoughts. Samuel from Apenkwa. Good morning, Samuel.
Good morning, Mama V. Yes. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you, Samuel.
Look, I want to support you ladies. Because when God created the heaven and earth and took the woman, how many ribs did God use to form the woman? Only one. That is Genesis chapter 2, from verse 18 down. When you go to, I heard people saying that then Solomon and so forth and so forth. When you go to Matthew 19, Jesus told them that in the beginning it was not so. It was because of their selfish gain. That is why any man that go in for 2 or 3 women, they are selfish. And you find out, they never succeed. Because if you dishonor the woman that you have married, and you think the woman is not nice enough, you want to go in for another one, you will end up married to every woman. All the 1,000 women, they are the one that destroyed Solomon because he couldn't keep his faithfulness.
Exactly.
Let us stick to one woman, honor them, treat them well, and it shall be well with us.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen, Samuel. Rukaya from Hacho. I really wanted to hear from you, so it's good that you've called. We're talking about you this morning. How are you?
I'm blessed. Yourself?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good morning once again.
Good morning.
It's amazing that you find most of the men calling, supporting it, and they are justifying it.
Oh, Rukaya, can you just reposition yourself? I think there are some breaks in your line. Let's see if we can get a clearer connection.
Hello?
Okay, please continue. Let's see.
Hello?
Hi, Rukaya.
Yeah, hello.
Okay, you continue.
Okay. I guess it's much better now.
No, it's not. You'd have to
Okay,
call us back or something. Yeah. Oh, this is painful. Really wanted to hear her thoughts.
I know, right? I know, because the women have been kind of quiet. But should we do some of our Twitter messages now? Okay, so at Adeku says, since it's the woman who is now marrying the men, the question now is, can women take care of 2 or more husbands if they wish to marry them? Dennis says, God confirms in Torah and Quran as law that a man can take more than one wife if he's prepared to provide food, clothing, and sexual intimacy to all these women equally, meaning be just in provisions offered to them. Torah references Exodus 21:10 and Quran is Surah 4:3. Rubenish says women don't marry, they get married. Bob Tivoli says if they can take care of them like men do, no P. Say Ernesto, women don't marry, they get married too. All right,
okay. Mike? Anyone will continue. Let me speak to Cynthia. Cynthia is joining us from Tema.
Hi.
Yeah, hi Cynthia. Thanks for holding.
This thing, you see, when it comes to a time that when they marry, we also marry. Trust me. When the men marry, we also marry. It doesn't matter saying they can impregnate 3 or more. We also see the nice guys, even though we are married.
We see
when
them.
they marry, we'll marry.
Exactly. We see
that
them.
That is my point.
We see she said we see the nice guys the same way the men see the nice girls.
Of course, we see them with the 6-pack.
We see them
we
with
see
the
men with some men. My husband is bald. I'm still with him. So if I've had 4 kids and my stomach is a little up, and you told me you've seen nice girls, so you are going out with her, trust me, I'm going to look for 6-pack.
Well.
Yeah. Cynthia, what is unfair about what you just said?
I mean, I understand her point, but the 6-pack part. Yeah.
Because if 6-pack is a requirement, I told you was studio.
For the bald part, I agree. I don't say that.
Which one is the bald part?
when diamonds are messing the problem.
No, mine is hair design or style.
You deliberately let them shape it like that. Wow.
Look, let no one deceive you. It's a hairstyle.
We're tolerating all these.
And yet you're talking about you. Let me continue the Twitter messages. Shamike says being pragmatic as possible and considering the fact that less than 80% fake why not? So the man who wants more has alternatives that do not bother the woman as much. The only challenge is money. If you have no challenges in that area, then you're good to go. As Roundtree says, if he can take full responsibilities for the two women, why not? It will reduce cheating and the spread of STI. Adam had no option, did he? And he made it clear by saying, the woman you gave me. He didn't say the woman I chose. Oluwa Speed says, honestly, marriage is unnecessary in the first place. Just have fun. When there's a child, take responsibility. Brennerton says, if you've got enough to take care of them and make sure you're still the man of the house, then no problem. Manfi married 2 billion self. All right. Deucalion says, if you can afford to take care of them and love them both equally, why not? Those are our Twitter messages so far.
All right, let's get some proper education on this whole subject. And our guest is a lawyer. He's also a pastor, and most importantly, he's Ghanaian. Mr. Kweku Pencil, it's a pleasure to have you join us.
Thank you.
Great. Maybe I should just pose the same question that we pose to our listeners to you. Is it time for us to reconsider the place of polygamy in our society?
I will not, subscribe to it. I will not. As a person, I've got my views, I've got my beliefs, and so forth and so on. So maybe for me as a person, the answer is no.
So what is wrong with a man who is married under the ordinance but has a child outside that marriage? What's wrong with him wanting to legitimize that relationship that he has with the child's mother by marrying her?
Everything has got to do with the law. I mean, what happens is that under our Marriages Act, a marriage under the ordinance is what we call an essentially monogamous marriage. The essence of a marriage under the Marriages Act or under the ordinance in particular is one man, one woman. And what it means is that outside that, the law does not permit a man to marry another woman lawfully. And if you purport to do that, there is the offense called polygamy, which is a criminal offense for which, or in respect of which, you can be put on trial, and where you are convicted, you may face a jail term or a fine or both. So that is what the law says. So when you ask about legitimizing, a marriage to a side chick or a concubine or to a woman other than your lawful wife under the ordinance, that is the problem. The law will deal with you.
How often, as a practitioner, do you see men getting punished for this offense? Because there are quite a good number of men out there who have legitimized this.
Now, when you use legitimized, I can only use legitimized in the sense of legalized. In other words, what is legitimate must be lawful. So, if you're talking about the fact of people going about doing what they claim to have married, it's their own business. It's a factual matter. But in point of law, only a few are, if I may choose my words carefully, are smart enough to purport to conduct a second marriage. But even in those circumstances, they do it under disguises, that is, under pretenses. None that I know boldly can go to a pastor or at the register of marriages and inform the registrar that he's got an existing marriage and he wishes to conduct a second one. Indeed, no officer of the law, no pastor, no marriage officer would accept that
and, of course, proceed to bless the second marriage. And that's why the people who are bold enough to do it, they do it on the guises. But you ask the simple question whether in my practical experience I find people who do that. Of course, especially in connection with divorce petitions, people come and tell you that I've got a husband who also purported to go through this kind of marriage. And in all those cases, that second marriage is, in addition to being a criminal offense, what we call a nullity. That the law would treat it as if it never existed. That's the current state of our law. As to people being criminalized or punished for doing that, once in a while, we see it in the papers, once in a while. They are very rare. The reasons why people may not maintain a criminal action against them may vary, but I've answered your question.
Right. Is it the same when it's customary? But even before you answer that, what if you're married under the ordinance, but then you meet a lady and then you go the traditional way? I mean, how do you describe that whole relationship?
It's still criminal. You know, we must distinguish the factual situation from the legal situation. A lot of people do that. They've got a marriage under the ordinance. Then they purport to go through another form of marriage, possibly customary. The law does not recognize such a marriage. Whatever you do it. Whoever lends herself to the whole process of being married under the customary, the people must know from today that it's a nullity. And the consequences of that finding of fact is that if for some reason the man had to die, and in the case he has not made a will, then the law cannot recognize you as a wife. Your child, yes, because under our laws there is no bastard in Ghana. Under our law, however a child is born, absent a paternity test, that child is recognized as the child of the man. And for all purposes on the law, that child can benefit under a deceased father's estate. But for women who contract or go through the process of contracting a second marriage to a man, whether under the ordinance or under customary law, it is a nullity. But let me even add this one. A trend has popped up in Ghana where even Muslims, especially I'm sorry, but I'm basing myself on experience. A lot of enlightened, educated Muslims now go through the system of registering their marriage under the ordinance. And what it means in law is that if you're a Muslim and you go through the system of registering your marriage under the ordinance, as a matter of law, such a system of marriage, what we say is that you have converted it from a Mohammedan marriage to an ordinance marriage. And the incidence of an ordinance marriage, that is to say, one man, one wife will apply. Meaning that if a Muslim who was married under the Mohammedan law, or in the first instance, you choose to marry under the ordinance, the law will not permit you to marry a second wife, notwithstanding the fact that their religion permits them to marry more than one. That's the fact of law.
Right. Let's look at remedies. Anymore is dying to ask you a question as a pastor, so let me wrap up on the legal matters. What are the remedies available to women if you're married to a man under ordinance and he goes out to illegally marry another woman? What can you do?
Yeah, you can go to court and ask for a declaratory relief. In other words, ask the court to declare that second marriage as a nullity. That's possibly, and of course, if the said marriage has caused injury to your feelings and so forth and so on, you may ask the court for an appropriate compensation in regard of that. I mean, with regard to the conduct, of your husband. And except in situations where people want a divorce, don't forget that one of the grounds for seeking a divorce is that the other party has committed adultery and the offended party is by reason of that adultery unable to live as husband and wife with the person. But obviously, you must know my views that I don't really subscribe to divorce. Not that divorces must not be conducted, but I'm saying that if I were a pastor, he came to me, my first advice would not be for you to have a divorce. That's why I started with a remedy relating to a declaration of nullity and possibility of compensation. But I speak as a lawyer and say that that can form the basis for a petition for divorce if you find it intolerable to live with a man by reason of him having committed adultery. That is it. But let me tell you what, if after knowledge of the adultery, you continue to live with a man as husband and wife, then the court of law may have a difficulty granting your petition for divorce on the sole basis of the adultery. Because the idea of intolerability, that is to say, your inability to live with your husband as a result of committed adultery means that when you got to know of the adultery, you failed or refused to continue the relationship and of consummating or continue consummation of the marriage. That is the way the law is.
Okay. So do all these rules apply to customary marriages?
Not necessarily. The thing about customary marriage, I've told you that the ordinance marriage is what we call an essentially monogamous marriage. In the case of customary marriage, it's what we call a potentially polygamous marriage. Potential in the sense that under customary law, a man may marry more than one, though he need not marry more than one. That's why we say it's a potentially polygamous marriage. But even then, under customary law, a man may marry a second wife subject to custom and subject to certain rules of practice. Typically, a man may wish to marry a second wife. Under customary law, he requires more or less the consent of his wife, though that may seem strange. That is in the form of pacification. A man may marry a second woman subject to pacifying his wife. And customary law is very fluid. What it means, for instance, is that if he goes ahead and do it, it's not like the wife can stop him. But under customary law, he may be required to pacify the wife for having married a certain woman, possibly against her wishes. Because the truth, as I know it, is that the customary law is not like a man really requires the consent of his wife, or the wife has to grant consent as a condition for his marrying. So what it means is that customary law, a man may marry as many wives as he wishes, and that is the essence of customary marriage, though he need not marry more than one.
Right. And finally on this, can you transition from ordinance to customary?
I do not know of any instance where you transition to customary. On the contrary, once an ordinance marriage has been contracted, it is of the essence of it that unless a court of law has granted a divorce, a court of law, not family, because a lot of people have married under ordinance marriage and they purport to have got the family to dissolve the marriage. In the eyes of the law, that is a brutal fulfillment exercise. That is to say, an exercise in futility. So you cannot have a transition. You can only have a divorce. But even in divorce, it is not at your wish. A court of law ought to grant that divorce. And it is only when you have been released from an ordinance marriage that you may wish to contract any other form of marriage. 3 of them: customary, Mohammedan marriage, and ordinance marriage.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone?
So that's
Okay,
the way it goes.
So my question is, I mean, even this morning we've had the argument of Solomon and David. I mean, if we're going the biblical route, we hear the scripture where Paul directs that bishops and pastors and men of God should marry one wife, which perhaps is leaving room for the conclusion that if you're not a pastor or a bishop or a deacon or any of those things, then perhaps it's okay to marry another wife. That's the argument that people who are pushing polygamy come with. So I want to know that what is the absolute, because the thing about the Bible is that it's quite absolute in what is wrong and what is right. So what is the absolute of the word of God concerning men marrying more than one woman in 2022, especially Christian men or men who say they are Christians?
My laughter must have answered your question because the Bible does not change. Apart from possibly the transition from the Old to the New Testament, and which we were released from the laws, but now God lives in our heart. The Apostle Paul said, "Don't you know that you are the temple of the living God?"
Come on.
We serve a living God and a holy God. But I'll answer your question. The rule, absolute, is not what you quoted about deacons and pastors and whatever, but for every born-again Christian. The Bible is quite clear. It's spread throughout the New Testament. The Apostle Paul has said, "I wish that everybody will be like me. But if not, then it's better to marry than to burn." Obviously, he didn't even mention the number of wives, but naturally, by references to other parts of the Bible, we've got this clear understanding that it is the wish of God for us under the New Testament.
Hi, the devil is alive.
Unfortunately, we've lost Mr. Kwaku Pencil.
It's Wednesday's ancestors who are messing with the phone line.
But the point is very clear.
Yeah, Mr. Kwaku Pencil, lawyer, pastor, joining us and giving us some sort of clarity on the subject. We've got more of your messages to share, so don't go anywhere. Stay with us.